Welcome to another reading of 1001 Nights. I hope you always enjoy the music. It's by our musical director, Kamyab Saderi. He's going to be tagged after the live reading in the description box. So tonight we're going to continue the story of Zumurrud and Ali Shah, who were madly in love. And Ali Shah, however, didn't listen to Zumurrud. Zumurrud was sewing silk fabric, and she would give it to him to sell at the bazaar only to the merchants, because her gut feeling was telling her that if he were to sell it to someone else, they would be separated. But he unfortunately didn't listen to her. He sold it to a merchant who was a Nazarene, and it didn't turn really well for her. So let's just continue the story, and I won't tell you more about it. You'll figure it out anyways. Enjoy the reading, everyone. Now when it was the 318th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth," excuse me, "that Zumurrud called for succor upon our Lord Muhammad, whom Allah bless and keep. Such was her case, but as regards Ali Shah, he ceased not sleeping till next day, when the bank quitted his brain, and he opened his eyes and cried out, 'O Zumurrud!' But no one answered him. So he entered the saloon and found the empty air and the fane afar, whereby he knew that it was the Nazarene who had played him this trick. And he groaned and wept and lamented and again shed tears, repeating these couplets: 'O love, thou art instant in thy cruelest guise, here is my heart twixt fears and miseries. Pity, O lords, a thrall who felled on way of love erst wealthy, now a beggar lies. What profits archer's art if, when the foe draw near, his bowstrings snap ere arrow flies? And when griefs multiply on generous man, and urge what fort can fend from destinies? How much and much I warded parting, but when destiny descends, she blinds our eyes.' And when he had ended his verse, he sobbed with loud sobs and repeated also these couplets: 'In robes with honor, sands of camp, her footstep wandering lone, pines the poor mourner as she wins the stead where wont to wone. She turns to resting place of tribe, and yearns thereon to view the spring camp lying desolate, with ruins overstrown. She stands and questions of the sight, but with the tongue of case. The mount replies, there is no path that leads to union, none. 'Tis as the lightning flash erewhile bright glittered over the camp, and died in darkling air, no more to be forever shown. And he repented, when repentance availed him naught, and wept and rent his raiment. Then he hand in hand 2 stones, and went round about the city, beating his breast with the stones, and crying, 'O Zumurrud!' whilst the small boys flocked round him, calling out, 'A madman, a madman!' And all who knew him wept for him, saying, 'This is such an one. What evil hath befallen him?' Thus he continued doing all that day, and when night darkened on him, he lay down in one of the city lanes and slept till morning. On the morrow he went round about town with stones till eventide, when he returned to his saloon to pass therein the night. Presently one of his neighbours saw him, and this worthy old woman said to him, 'O my son, heaven give thee healing. How long hast thou been mad?' And he answered her with these 2 couplets: They said, "Thou ravest upon the person thou lovest." And I replied, "The sweets of life are only for the mad. Drop the subject of my madness, and bring her upon whom I rave. If she cure my madness, do not blame me." So his old neighbour knew him for a lover who had lost his beloved, and said, "There is no majesty and there is no might, save in Allah, the glorious, the great. O my son, I wish thou wouldest acquaint me with the tale of thine affliction. Peradventure Allah may enable me to help thee against it, if it so please him." So he told her all that had befallen him with Barsoum the Nazarene and his brother the wizard, who had named himself Rashid al-Din. And when she understood the whole case, she said, "O my son, indeed thou hast excuse." And her eyes railed tears, and she repeated these two couplets: "Enough for lovers in this world, their ban and bane. By Allah, lover never in fire of Sakaf rise. For sure they died of love desire, they never told. Chastely unto this truth tradition testifies." And after she had finished her verse, she said, "O my son, rise at once and buy me a crate, such as the jewel peddlers carry, but also bangles and seal rings and bracelets and earrings and other gewgaws wherein women delight, and grudge not the cash. Put all the stock into the crate and bring it to me, and I will set it on my head and go round about in the guise of a huckstress, and make search for her in all the houses till I happen on news of her, inshallah." So Ali Shah rejoiced in her words and kissed her hands, then going out speedily brought her all she required. Whereupon she rose and donned a patched gown, and threw over her head a honey yellow veil, and took staff in hand, and with the basket on her head began wandering about the passages and the houses. She ceased not to go from house to house, and street to street, and quarter to quarter, till Allah Almighty led her to the house of the accursed Rashid al-Din, the Nazarene, where, hearing groans within, she knocked at the door. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. Now when it was the 316th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the old woman heard groans within the house, she knocked at the door, whereupon a slave girl came down, and opening to her, saluted her. Quoth the old woman, "I have these trifles for sale. Is there any one with you who will buy aught of them?" "Yes," answered the damsel, and carrying her indoors, made her sit down. Whereupon all the slave girls came round her, and each bought something of her. And as the old woman spoke them fair, and was easy with them as to price, all rejoiced in her because of her kind ways and pleasant speech. Meanwhile, she looked narrowly at the ins and outs of the place to see who it was she had heard groaning, till her glance fell on Zumurrud, when she knew her, and she began to show her customers yet more kindness. At last she made sure that Zumurrud was laid prostrate, so she wept and said to the girls, "O my children, how cometh yonder young lady in this plight?" And the slave girls told her all what had passed, adding, "Indeed, this matter is not of our choice, but our master commanded us to do thus, and he is now on a journey." She said, "O my children, I have a favor to ask of you, and it is that you loose this unhappy damsel of her bonds, till you know of your Lord's return, when do ye bind her again as she was, and you shall earn a reward from the Lord of all creatures." "We hear and obey," answered they, and at once loosing Zumurrud, gave her to eat and drink. Thereupon quoth the old woman, "Would my leg had been broken ere I entered your house." And she went up to Zumurrud and said to her, "O my daughter, heaven keep thee safe. Soon shall Allah bring thee relief." Then she privily told her that she came from her lord Ali Shar, and agreed with her to be on the watch for sounds that night, saying, "Thy lord will come and stand by the pavilion bench and whistle to thee. And when thou hearest him, do thou whistle back to him, and let thyself down to him by a rope from the window, and he will take thee and go away with thee." So Zumurrud thanked the old woman, who went forth and returned to Ali Shah and told him what she had done, saying, "Go this night at midnight to such a quarter, for the accursed carle's house is there, and its fashion is thus and thus. Stand under the window of the upper chamber and whistle, whereupon she will let herself down to thee. Then do thou take her and carry her whither thou wilt." He thanked her for her good offices, and with flowing tears repeated these couplets. "Now with their says and says, no more vex me the chiding rays. My heart is weary, and I'm worn to bone by their disgrace. And tears a truthful legend with a long ascription chain. Of my desertion and distress the lineage can trace. O thou heart whole and free from dole and dolours I endure, cut short thy long persistency, nor question of my case. A sweet-lipped one and soft of sides, and cast in shapeliest mould, hath stormed my heart with honeyed lure and honeyed words of grace. No rest my heart hath known since thou art gone, nor ever close. These eyes nor patience allow scape the hopes I dare to trace. Ye have abandoned me to be the pawn of vain desire, in squalid state twixt envious and they who blame to face. As for forgetting you, O love, 'tis thing I never knew, nor in my thought shall ever pass a living thing but you. And when he ended his verses, he sighed and shed tears, and repeated also these couplets. Divinely were inspired his words, who brought me news of you. For brought he unto me a gift, was music in mine ear. Take he for gift, if him content, this worn-out threadbare robe, my heart which was in pieces torn when parting from my fear. He waited till night darkened, and when came the appointed time, he went to the quarter she had described to him, and saw and recognized the Christian's house. So he sat down on the bench under the gallery. Presently drowsiness overcame him, and he slept. Glory be to him who sleepeth not, for it was long since he had tasted sleep, by reason of the violence of his passion, and he became as one drunken with slumber. And while he was on this wise, Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. And here's the last one for tonight. Now when it was the 317th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that while he lay asleep, behold, a certain thief who had come out that night and prowled about the skirts of the city to steal somewhat, happened by the decree of destiny on the Nazarene's house. He went round about it, but found no way of climbing up into it, and presently on his circuit he came to the bench where he saw Ali Shah asleep and stole his turban. And as he was taking it, suddenly Zumurrud looked out and, seeing the thief standing in the darkness, took him for her lord. Whereupon she let herself down to him by the rope with a pair of saddlebags full of gold. Now when the robber saw that, he said to himself, "This is a wondrous thing, and there must needs be some marvellous cause to it." And he snatched up the saddlebags and threw Zumurrud over his shoulders and made off with both like the blinding lightning. Quoth she, "Verily, the old woman told me that thou wast weak with illness on my account, and here thou art stronger than a horse." He made her no reply. So she put her hand to his face and felt a beard like the broom of palm frond used for the hammam, as if he were a hog which had swallowed feathers and they had come out of his gullet. Whereat she took fright and said to him, "What art thou?" "O strumpet," answered he, "I am the sharper Jawan, the Kurd of the band of Ahmad al-Danaf. We are 40 sharpers who will all piss our tallow into thy womb this night, from dusk to dawn." When she heard his words, she wept and beat her face, knowing that fate had gotten the better of her, and that she had no resource but resignation and to put her trust in Allah Almighty. So she took patience and submitted herself to the ordinance of the Lord, saying, "There is no God but thee, God. As often as we escape from one woe, we fall into a worse." Now the cause of Jawan's coming thither was this. He had said to Calamity Ahmad, "O sharper captain, I have been in this city before and know a cavern without the walls which will hold 40 souls. So I will go before you thither and set my mother therein. Then will I return to the city and steal somewhat for the luck of all of you and keep it till you come. So shall you be my guests, and I will show you hospitality this day." Replied Ahmad al-Danaf, "Do what thou wilt." So Jawan went forth to the place before them and set his mother in the cave. But as he came out, he found a trooper lying asleep with his horse picketed beside him. So he cut his throat, and taking his clothes and his charger and his arms, hid them with his mother in the cave, where also he tethered the horse. Then he betook himself to the city and prowled about till he happened unto Christian's house, and did with Ali Shah's turban and Zumurrud and her saddlebags as we have said. He ceased not to run with Zumurrud on his back till he came to the cavern, where he gave her in charge of his mother, saying, "Keep thou watch over her till I return to thee at first dawn of day," and went his ways. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. That was a very interesting story, wasn't it? Look what I found. It's a piece of a puzzle. It's probably my cat or some ghost. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Please tune in tomorrow. Joanna will be reading, and I will see you next week on Tuesday. Sending you much love from Vienna, from my humble home to yours, and as usual, remember to go inwards instead of outwards, guys. Have a good night, everyone. Much love.